walk up to what was that church building, and to see nothing but ashes was hard. It was heartbreaking.
And like one Sunday, we were in teaching our children, and the next day it was all gone.
It was not an easy task to understand that the building was gone.
Yeah.
I don't know how God's providence works, but I just know it works.
Absolutely.
And we will be stronger because of it.
That's just a building. The congregation is not dead.
That's right.
Amen.
We're here in Gatlinburg, as most of you know. 2 weeks ago today, this community suffered tremendous loss and horrible fires that hit this area, and probably, my understanding, the worst fires ever in the state of Tennessee and maybe eastern United States. And this community has been devastated by the horrendous fires. And we're here this morning interviewing Brother Rod Rutherford. Brother Rod preaches for the church here in Gatlinburg, and as maybe many of you know, the church building here in Gatlinburg was totally destroyed, and we're going to talk about that and some of the things surrounding the recovery, and we're just happy to have Brother Rod Rutherford with us this morning.
Well, the Gatlinburg congregation began, I understand, in 1958. The church began meeting in the convention center here, met there for about 6 years, but in 1964, the church building was opened. The building was the church was primarily started by the late Creed Spurgeon, and members of his family continue to be members active in the church to this day. But the building was opened in 1964. It was a unique building. It was built A-frame to fit into the mountain setting.
Right.
Beautiful wood paneling inside. Many people commented on the beauty of it. And we had recently just gone through a period of repair and remodeling. We had spent several years and several $1,000s getting it just the way we wanted it. We'd replaced the painting behind the baptistry with a mural. And the Sunday before the building burned on Monday, I was talking with David Barton and Woody Luna, two of our members, and who've been very hard workers in getting the building back in shape. And I said, you know, we've done just about everything we need to do now to get our building where we want it. The following day it was gone.
Oh my.
But to go on with the history, the church building was opened in 1964. The design of the building came from the chapel at Vanderbilt University. One of the members of the church, J.D. Tant, was an architect. He incidentally was a great-grandson of the famous Texas preacher J.D. Tant. But he designed the building based on the one that was on the Vanderbilt campus. Ours was a scaled-down version of it.
Neat.
In the Gospel Advocate in 1970, I think it was November of 1970, on the front page of the Advocate was a picture of our building, covered the entire front page, and inside was a story by Brother Spurgeon telling how the last penny had been paid that was owed on the building. So it was built, opened in '64, it was paid for by 1970. A lot of brethren around the country helped pay for it. I understand from our sister May Chambers, a member of the church here, and the daughter of Brother Spurgeon. She's been a member of the congregation since the beginning. But she told me they would get envelopes of money, sometimes collections from children's classes, and it might be $3 or $4, you know, but other people would send $5 a week, and that's how they were able to finance the building and to pay it off. I suppose it's affected different people probably in different ways, but we have 3 families in the congregation who lost their homes. And so they suffered the loss of their home and all their worldly possessions in it, all the memories and sentimentalities associated with that. But at the same time, they suffered the loss of their place of worship. And all that meant to them. And so it's been very difficult. One of our ladies who lost her home is Sister Tant, the widow of J.D. Tant, who designed the building. And she had a beautiful home that they had built, and she's lived in that home for more than 50 years.
Wow.
And the Gatlinburg Church has been her church home for
part of
50
her
years
life.
or more.
Absolutely.
You know. But she's lost both of them, but she's handling it very, very well. She has a very good attitude. Another one of our members who lost her home was Janet Howe. Janet is originally from Mount Juliet over in Middle Tennessee. She came here about 10 years ago, I believe. She had children living in the area, and she came for the purpose of being near her children because she wanted to get them back into the church. She had fallen away from the church and then had come back before she had moved up here. But she lost her home. She had a son, Michael, who's disabled, who lived with her, so he lost his home. She had a daughter, Wendy, who and Wendy is a member of the church. She had been restored, I guess, about a year, maybe 2 years ago now. So she lost her home. Then we had a couple, the Sorters, who placed membership with us within the past 2 years. I don't recall exactly the time. Faithful members of the church, originally from Florida. They had a married daughter and her family living in an apartment in their house. And then they had a son with his family also living in a portion of the house. So it was 3 families that lost their home. But these families, I think, are doing wonderfully well. They're really handling it very well, and we appreciate that. We've been able to help them financially through the funds that have come in. We've had a wonderful outpouring of aid, and so we've been able to help those families, and that has to be our priority.
Sure, absolutely.
And then the church building, of course, will be rebuilt, but that will come later. Now I'm saying this, and I hope I'm not wrong in it, but my understanding is from talking with all of them that none of them plan to rebuild.
Well,
they're going to look for other homes.
they hope to stay in the area?
They plan to
Good.
stay in the area.
Good.
In fact, one of the couples, the Sorters, are hoping to rent a home with the possibility of buying it later that belonged to one of our members who is at the stage where she perhaps needs to think about assisted living or something like that.
Sure. We're here in your temporary meeting place,
Yes.
and you've got it fixed up really very nice, and you've told me of a number of different brethren around the country have given you furniture and communion set and just all kinds of things. Would you like to talk about that a little bit?
Well, I think we're really blessed to have this meeting place. David
Absolutely.
Barton is sitting back there, and Woody Luna's at the back. Those two brethren were instrumental in locating the place and getting the lease on it. We have a lease for 12 months. And then the people who owned the building came in and repainted it and got it in a very nice condition for us. Yesterday was our first day to meet in it. Now we had to have the furniture, of course. We had nothing. We had to begin with that. And so we had about 30 chairs, I believe, that were in our storage shed that weren't burned, maybe more. And we had more. And we had one of our members talk to her employer. He had chairs. He gave her 30 chairs to give to the church. And so we got our seating that way. A church at Cookville, one of the churches in the area, Double Springs, had replaced all of their furniture in their auditorium. They gave us our pulpit and our communion table. We needed songbooks, and an elder from the Bethel Church near Pikeville, Bobby Collier, had called and wanted to know what they could do to help. And in the course of our conversation, I said, "You wouldn't have any old songbooks, would you?" And he said, "Well, we don't," but he said the Wheeler Hill Church, where my mother-in-law attended, changed their books not long ago. And so he said, "I could get those for you, I think." We got those songbooks. The publisher of a new songbook that was edited by the late W.D. Jeffcoat, he and the elders of the New Hope Road congregation in Gatlinburg, Georgia, got together, and they called us and they said, we would like to give you some brand new songbooks. So we have 100 brand new songbooks coming. And then when we get in our building, they've promised us an additional 100.
Wow, that's great.
But we didn't even have a communion set.
Right.
And so I called the Gospel Advocate. The brethren authorized me to find one, and so I called the Advocate and ordered a communion set from them. Well, the lady in the bookstore knew about what had happened to the Gatlinburg church building.
Right.
She talked to Randy Duke, who's the owner of the Advocate, the president of the Advocate Company. And so when she filled my order, she said, by the way, Brother Duke says there'll be no charge for it. So they provided that for us.
Wow, that's great.
So we've been really blessed. We have everything that we need, to conduct our services. What we need to do now is to rebuild our church building and, of course, continue to help the 3 families until they get fully back on their feet.
Right.
And we will be helping people in the community, particularly with relief supplies.
Nothing like the Sevier County community and how the fellowship here, and greatly appreciate you.
Thank you. We appreciate the opportunity to express this before our brotherhood on television.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We were safe in our location. We had been told that we might have to evacuate. We slept in our clothes that night. We had bags packed. We loaded one of the vehicles, and we were ready to go. What's interesting as I look back, one of the clocks at the church building stopped at 10 minutes after 10 on Monday night. At 10 minutes after 10, I was in my parking lot looking toward downtown, and the red glow in the sky was the church building burning. The first pictures that surfaced came from the Knoxville News Sentinel, the newspaper in Knoxville. It was hard to look at those pictures.
Oh, I'm sure.
And to walk up to that church building and to see nothing but ashes was hard. It was heartbreaking. And most of us, as we saw it for the first time, there were tears in our eyes.
Oh, absolutely, sure.
It was not an easy task to understand that the building was gone. I don't know how God's providence works, but I just know it works.
Absolutely.
And we will be stronger because of it.
Absolutely, you will, because of that determination.
But the women, most of us are teachers, but we all pull together as one. But I want to say this too, if I may.
Sure, go ahead.
The first Wednesday night that the Sevierville congregation opened up their building to us was wonderful. They were welcoming and warm, and when we saw each other for the first time, we hugged and just glad to be back together.
I hope the non-Christians watching this will become members of the Lord's church and see the enjoyment you get with working with all these people. I mean, they'll always give you a hug and say, hey, if you can't use your car, I'll use mine. And that's the way the Christian family works. And we're just so grateful here. I tell everybody, you just have to been a member of the Gatlinburg congregation the last 8 years to see how special it was. We'd have visitors, and they'd outnumber us every week. Every week they'd outnumber us. And you meet so many beautiful people you wouldn't believe. And Canada, Australia, we've even had some from Japan, and isn't
it a joy?
It is. First we started with TV. Okay. We got on local. Well, we got Mark. Hey, this is what we can do here. Okay. And a lot of people don't know this about GBN, but they've been so wonderful to us. The radio station. A lot of people don't know during this disaster, we have not stopped not one support that we're doing.
Good for you.
I tell everybody, that's just a building. The congregation is not dead.
That's right.
Amen.
Absolutely. The congregation didn't burn, did it?
Nope.
Absolutely.
No, sir.
Absolutely.